now we start the program for today, and today our first topic is about skilling the workforce. I'll request Suman, I request Sri Radha to moderate the session. Sri Radha, please come. Sri Radha, as you are aware, she is a professor in the O.P. Jindal Global University.
As against 15% of women's workforce being skilled, there's of course a much larger workforce, which is 15 against 100. Even the sectors within the skilling, groups, as against 23 for women, they're 151 for women. This is a very recent updated report. Also, this divide becomes much worse in this post-pandemic digital space. Of course, there is a lot more catch-up that's happening. It's true that the fact that we're actually talking about it, discussing it, is certainly a positive way, the way I see it. But we have a very enlightened group here to discuss this particular aspect. So I'm going to start by Sohini Sinha, who's been part of this industry with Tata, and she will share her experience, and she has a PPT, so look forward to your work.
What I'm going to talk about here has some of the insights that we've had as we've been setting up a predominantly women's workforce for this new industry in India. I shall also share some of the insights that we've had in the process of trying to build a forum of other manufacturing companies. So we've got together about a dozen manufacturing companies in and around Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, etc. And we're working together on this agenda of opening up this sector to women. So let me just begin by just sharing a little bit about the context. So this is where So today the manufacturing sector. So today the manufacturing sector contributes to around 15-16% of the economy. It employs about 12% of the workforce. But the potential of this sector is that in a couple of years it could be as large as 25% of the sector. So clearly a sector that is poised for growth. The other interesting thing is that it's by and large it's one sector which can grow immensely. There are a few emerging sectors in manufacturing which are of interest. There's of course electronics, semiconductors. There's a whole lot happening in the space of electrical vehicles, sustainable energy, batteries, and so on. So all the new age industries, there's a whole lot happening there. Another interesting element which defines women in the sector is how Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0 is changing the sector. What it really means is that there's far more technology today in the sector, which in a way helps make the sector gender neutral. Now, whilst this is the backdrop, we're talking about growing from about a present 15-16% to a 25% of the economy. It's barely 12% of the workforce in manufacturing today is female. And that's just one record, one piece that I could find. If you ask me, if you were to go all out and look at the entire spectrum of industrial and manufacturing organizations, I'm sure in many organizations we actually see a lower number. That's what I reckon. So you can't really grow the sector unless you believe in it. How's the sector going to grow? Where are the people going to come from? It has to be women. So it's not even a matter of choice. However, there are some challenges, and some of these challenges will seem so familiar. I heard so many conversations yesterday. The challenges are very similar. The challenges of how you bring in new people, the fact that there are very strong gender stereotypes. Manufacturing is seen as a man's space, right? It's not really a space that many young women will aspire to be. I mean, how many young women think of wearing industrial overalls and going in and working in the factory? That's not what we kind of imagine, do we? So that's one of the realities. It's not really a sector which is a sector of choice for employment for a lot of women. We do have more and more women coming into the STEM fields, but when it's a question of finding women in the relevant STEM fields, that's a challenge. So we need women with mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, electrical engineering, etc. The women will tend to opt for IT or electronics or some of those spaces. So that's the typical challenge, and that's where there are many barriers to getting women into the sector. The second challenge is, even after all this, once you've scrambled and got women in, there are many challenges in retaining women in the sector. And that's not a surprise. It's just worse in our sector, I think. One research piece that I read talked about how 73% of women in manufacturing drop off at trade. Now, is that a surprise? Manufacturing setups are typically in far off locations, difficult to access. These are outside regular urban settlements. Many of these are very old-fashioned in their thinking. Sometimes women struggle with access to washrooms. I heard the conversation. It was very interesting. I mean, it's true in the US. It's true in the semi-urban parts of India, where a lot of the manufacturing setups are established today. So these are just some of the factors. There are other factors. What happens is, even if you've hired some very bright engineering graduates into the sector, but they struggle because they can't see anybody else who's grown in the sector. It's almost impossible to find a woman who's grown in the ranks in manufacturing. We do see thankfully many bright sparks where there are people at least in the early stages of management, but where are the role models? Where is a line of sight to what this career can do for you? And interestingly, this is the sector which is poised for growth. And then what are the future risks? You mentioned post-COVID. Now, the future risk, one, we saw a lot of women fall out of the sector thanks to COVID. The other risk that we see, on one hand, you have Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0, which reduces the need for physical labor and physical strength, stamina, etc. to do work in this sector. But it also means that the automation and all the high-end technology that's transforming this sector really needs higher order cognitive skills. Now you have a challenge where women don't have access to equal education. You need higher order cognitive skills. You need you need women to be able to work with this emerging technology. You need them to understand data, analytics, and so on and so forth. So, whilst there are challenges bringing women in, retaining them, if we don't focus on this quickly enough, a lot of the jobs that women presently do in manufacturing are at the risk of getting automated and replaced by machines and robots. So this is the context. And what's our approach? And this is work that we're doing jointly with many other organizations. There's Tata Electronics, there's Titan, there is Tata Motors, there's GE, there's Asian Paints, ITC, a whole lot of companies across the sector, most of us based in and around Bangalore and Hosur. What we're trying to work on is, there are things to be done across the entire life cycle of women in the sector. So to begin with, there is work to be done in changing mindsets. We need a new narrative. This narrative that this is a sector for women, I mean, that's not what people really think is possible. So that's the big shift. And when I was talking to Arina yesterday and saying, I have a background in human behavior and human resources, but this is sociological work. And that's why it's so interesting to sit in a room like this with multiple perspectives, because the issues really cut across society. The next piece is to make the manufacturing as a sector gender accessible. All the processes, systems, just making it a level playing field. And finally, you need to build the talent pool. You need the skills for today, you need the skills for tomorrow. So what are we working on? We are working on the entire spectrum of employees in the sector. We're looking at how do we make people enter. So there's work to be done right at the level of schools. And we're beginning going to government schools in our catchment areas, talking to the young girls about technology, taking them into museums, science museums, helping them understand the excitement of science and technology. Okay, so we begin there. We're beginning work with technical colleges, diploma, these polytechniques, the engineering colleges, because we have to tell the story that this is a sector that women can work in. And finally, how do we help women enter and most importantly re-enter the sector? And that's a tough one because we lose young women, very competent young women, and they go off into the services sector. So it is almost a battle of the sectors, for this talent. So that's the entry part. The enablement part is really about slowly but surely changing mindsets within organizations, within our communities. A lot of work needs to be done in working with our communities so that communities support women coming to work. So everyone who comes to work has care responsibilities in some way or the other. It's either elderly or it is children. Nobody is going back and relaxing. Everybody has to balance this whole thing. So how do we build shared spaces of support? And that is our vision. I know it's a tough one to pull off, but larger companies like ours can set up world-class creches, for example, but not every organization can do that. So how do we make our communities support our women through these support mechanisms? We need the right policy systems, etc. But people work on the policies and systems, but without affecting the underlying factors, it's not going to help so much. And then we look at how do we look at the right technical and leadership skills, and how do we, most importantly, I think we're coming to this realization that we need to build networks and support mechanisms. We need to have women know whom to reach out to. A setup like this is very appealing from every way possible. I have 18, 19, 20-year-old women who come to work in our factory in a part of rural Tamil Nadu. Who do they connect with? How do we help them connect with people? How do we make them understand that there's this whole setup of people who are willing to help you? I think that's something we really want to work on. And finally, we need to acknowledge whatever is happening well and learn from each other. So there is no way any one organization can track this. The only way we can do this is when we do it together. So I do see the need to collaborate across organizations, across sectors, because the issues are about Indian society and gender issues at large. So that's what we are working on. What we need is a movement. That's what's going to help us out. So yeah.
Thank you, Sohini. Manufacturing is a tough sector in any case, and then with automation and artificial intelligence now is becoming certainly much more of a challenge. But I think, I don't know whether we could call this a movement, but at least this network is happening, and the fact that we are being aware of each other's requirements, needs, and the ability to connect actually is taking this forward. Can I request Pritha Dutt now, who's really spent a lifetime in this particular aspect? Yeah, so I request you to share your experience. So I take from Sohini's movement, and I'll structure my response in two parts. One is what really has been happening in the last 12 years in the field of skill development at the national level. And I'm sure a lot of you are not even aware of the work that is being kind of done, and that's a movement needed to make it visible, and I'm thanks to Ananya for making this possible. Two is how do I access that information, and that information is relevant for all of you. Entrepreneurs, it is relevant for women who are working with you, it is relevant for workforce working with you, it is also relevant from a futuristic point of view, if you want to pick. So the National Skill Development Corporation has been a part of the skill ecosystem ever since the skill ecosystem started, that is 2010. The National Skill Development Corporation has created firstly what's called for every sector, bioenzyme, handicraft, livelihood, training, paper, printing, chemical, lubricants, castrol, every sector that you can think of, there is a sector skill council. The most obvious sector skill council, or what you all know, is ITITS, that's NASSCOM. NASSCOM has an ITITS sector skill council. Every sector has a sector skill council. In the sector skill council, there are what is called gradation of skills. There are 10 grades starting from lower level 1.
A lower level one, for example, in a logistics sector skill council would be a picker, somebody who's actually doing the pickup and delivery job. For a beauty sector, it will be the what's called the basic level of beauty, worker, which is like, and then it goes into specialization, hair and cosmetics, whatever. So whether you're making cosmetics, whether you're opening a beauty parlor, there is a sector skill council. All the skills required for that sector skill council, for that sector and that particular profession and job role is available. At nsdcindia.org, it's available free, which means you can go and take a look at what really is the standard and the skill set required for that. So number one, there is no sector that you can think of that it is not available. There is also post-COVID, a lot of it is available on the digital format. So you can go and access that digitally. Now, how does it kind of help? So I am the chairperson, for example, for one sector skill council, which incidentally is the only sector skill council that does not have a corporate backing it. That's the Domestic Worker Sector Skill Council. There are 12 million domestic workers in the country. This Sector Skill Council is not only about domestic workers, but other professions which are at that level. For example, COVID made us realize that one need for every household, and especially if you have elderly, parents and relatives staying with you, is the care economy. That's the, care worker. There are clinical care workers, which is under the Health Sector Skill Council, and there are non-clinical care workers, which come under the Domestic Worker Sector Skill Council. So if you are, for example, opening an enterprise, or you're working in a company, or you have your own setup, in any one of the sector skill councils, including Domestic Worker Sector Skill Council, which does not have a corporate otherwise backing it, because the demand for this profession is really from households or small establishments. So firstly you can go and kind of access that. So that's one. There is a whole lot of material, curriculum, standard, guidelines that's available. Now, if you want to go beyond that and do training, there are 2-3 ways that one can access. One is you can contact that relevant sector skill council to get training organized. Of course, there is a fee for that kind of training, but there are ways to make it less expensive. So one is in case you get some grant or fund, because a lot of organizations are willing, including forums and associations, are willing to help particularly women get capable, so that they are able to help their organization, whether you are an NGO, you're a corporate still, even if you're an NGO or a for-profit company. So with a limited amount of money, you can skill your workforce. You can also get some funding to do that. There is another easier way, which is called the recognition of prior learning. You may know what you're doing, but you don't have a certificate for it. So RPL is a simpler way to get yourself skill certified. How does skill certification help? Firstly, this is a Government of India recognized certificate, which means it's open doors for government, contracts, jobs, gives you credibility. So if you say all my workforce is skill certified, it just helps you get a lot of credibility. It also helps you get mobility. One of the big reasons, particularly women are not able to be mobile, is because, especially in professions that are kind of where your skills matter more than your technical or your management or whatever degree or skills matter. If you don't have a certificate, then nobody knows how good you are. You have to say, she's working with so-and-so people tell, so you're not mobile. A skill certificate helps. Interestingly, a couple of years back, and with some funding support from the German Development Agency, we figured that there is nothing for women entrepreneurs. And yesterday there was a talk about how do we make a business plan, or how do we get documentation for women entrepreneurs. Sometimes it's missing. and they are not able to get access to formal finance. So there is now also a curriculum guideline for women entrepreneurs, and that is available on the MEPSC Sector Skill Council. So you can access that and you can find out what are the skill sets that are required. Number 3 is, even if you are not interested or you don't want any of the sector specific skills, there is something called an employability, life skills and entrepreneurial skills. That's available again across all sectors. So that will help you to know, okay, fine, I don't want a big skill certification sector wise, but I just want my workforce, I want to get knowledge about what are the entrepreneurial skills needed, or what are the digital skills needed, or what are the life skills kind of needed. So that's also something that's available. So along with helping to get yourself and your workforce certified with a credible agency, you can also access and start a movement, because it's just available and not a lot of people kind of know. There are also beyond this both nominally paid online and private sector initiatives to skill workforce, whether that is on Udemy and stuff. There are a whole lot of online resources available. There are corporates who have started small short programs for women. Something called VAs is available, where you can access short courses for very kind of nominal fee. But I believe that more and more people know about it. At least you get to know what really is available in terms of standards and content for.
Thank you, Pritha. I mean, I learned a lot, and I'm sure especially the younger people there would appreciate it. I'm going to go to Ekta Jaju now for hearing her experiences about the challenges and opportunities in the world of sustainable work, right? Thank you so much.
To connect with young people over the issue of environment and climate change. And this was way back in 2008, when we were not talking about climate change so much. Through that journey, to look at energy in various spaces, started to connect with a lot of farmer groups, started creating farmer collectives, and I personally got very passionate about organic food. So I think throughout my life, I think I've just kept learning, and I still think there is so much to learn. But then, of course, I learned how to grow food, and how to grow food organically. So I spent a few weeks just learning how to do that. Started to grow my own food. Started to work with farmers to understand if they wanted to switch to organic farming, because at that point we were working in Nadia. The farmers were using a lot of chemicals. It's a highly fertile bed, but an intensive chemical bed. And surprisingly, every farmer we went to wanted to switch to the foundation. We did trainings with them, took them for exposure visits, and I love these farmers. Can you hear me now? Yes, I think it's better. So I love these farmers because they're not like the poor, sorry farmers that we hear of, but they were actually entrepreneurs. They were actually experimenters. So for a year they experimented on their fields after learning how to grow food organically. At the end of the year, came back and said, you know what, it works, and we want to switch. But you have to promise us that what we grow organically will find a market, because at the moment we don't have a market. Like we sell it in the conventional markets, or you teach us to grow indigenous varieties, which actually has no markets at all. We have to eat it in our homes. And of course, there is a dip in production. So you've promised that there are large markets, and you can get paid better for organic. So if you can promise all of that, we will all switch, right? And this is the romantic notion of the youth. Of course, very thoroughly believed that there is a very big organic market, and the farmers were growing, and we were taking it to Kolkata and selling it, and it would all sell off as hotcakes. And of course, a lot of times, and I'm sure a lot of the entrepreneurs believe that when we start, it's with a romantic notion. To be very honest, what I know today about my sector, if I knew that about 7 years back, I perhaps may not have started. I don't know. So So with all of that romantic notion, we started, set up a retail outlet, and yes, I think that's where all my problems began. But then I also believe that from there started a journey. Of course, I was learning all throughout, but I think there started a journey of self-development. And I think I'm not the same person that I was 5 years back. I think entrepreneurship has changed a lot about who I am. And yeah, so of course, first thing we learned is retail does not work. You can't have a group of farmers grow things and set up a retail outlet. They can only do 7 things. Like a farmer in a particular geography cannot fill our basket. Right? They can only grow a few things, you grow them in large volumes. So you work with 500 farmers, they will give you the same things in large volumes, but I can still not fill any of your baskets. And then there were a bunch of other problems with food processing and pests, because nobody really knew how to process organic food, how to package organic food, how to keep them away from pests. It's food, right? We eat it as food, pests also eat it as food. How do you protect it from pests unless you put poison in it? So yeah, learned a whole lot about food processing, about quality, but then I said, where do we sell? So of course from there started a journey of moving into B2B, realizing that when you really want to pay farmers well and you're looking at competing with 10 other companies, some may be ethical, some may not be ethical. What else do you do? So where can you find the value for what your farmers are really doing? And then from there started the journey of realizing how can we find export markets for them. Where they're looking for genuine products, they're looking for some of these specialty things, and now we export to Europe, to US, and we now work in about. We started with 6 farmers. When those 6 farmers came to us and said, we will switch, and today we work with over 10,000 farmers in about 7 states of India. And I still, when I'm sitting at conferences like this, or when I'm sitting with investors, I still feel like I don't know anything. There is just so much to learn, because every day we're doing new things. We were selling rice, we've now moved on to spice. It's a completely new sector. Even in spice, we're looking at so many different spices. Quality specs are different, export requirements are different. But I think one really common thread that I see all throughout is knowing what you don't know. I think it's very important to acknowledge where is it that you want to be. What does it take to get there? What is it that you don't know? And where can you get that information? I think some of these things I think is very critical. Like to start with, when I started my business, I did not even know what operations meant. And I'd studied filmmaking. I'd studied arts before that. I didn't know what was operations. I didn't know how to. I did commerce in school, like 11, 12, but I really didn't remember how to manage my accounts, read finance, there's so many things. And to be very honest, I think now the world wants to see strong women, they want to see skilled women. Of course, this is an example, but I think this is across. There is funding available, there is knowledge available. So I did this program called 10,000 Women Scholarship Program with ISB, which is the first time I really understood what business was. It was a crash course in business. But that I think helped me a lot in understanding what are different aspects of business, what is required to really do a business. After that, of course, I was incubated at IIM Calcutta and then with Will Grow. And throughout the journey, I think all of those learnings have come at a point where I needed to learn something new. Like what I know can get me up to here, but I need to go here, right? All of us want to grow, or all of us want to build larger enterprises, and we have to upskill ourselves at all points. I'm still learning. I'm currently doing a course at the Miller Center, where I'm learning a bunch of things, and I still think there is so much more to learn. So yeah, I think so. While we are discussing about gender and we are discussing about how women need to be skilled, I don't think there is really a difference. Like, I don't think that, women need special attention because they are women. But I think it's a lot to do with, like, I think what she said, we don't have exposure, we don't know what are opportunities available to us. We've not really thought about those things. I think it could be a cultural thing, it could be a personal thing. Like, we are also expected to do more than just work, right? We also have those expectations from us. We feel more fulfilled when we are not just doing work, but we're also able to, do more than that, take care of our families, take care of ourselves. Like, I know my husband works 16 hours,
And he's very happy doing that. He wakes up in the morning, even if it's 3 in the night, he'll get up and he'll remember some work that needs to be done, he'll finish that and sleep. I don't want to be that. Right? I want to be able to take care of myself. There's so many other things except for my work which is important to me. Right? And I know I won't be happy at the end of the day if I'm not doing justice to all of those roles that I play in my life. But at the same time, that does not stop us from being businesswomen or building our careers. And I think this fine balance, I think, is something that only women can bring into a workplace, into a home, into the society. And I think this is something which is very important for us to remember, and also know that we can do whatever we set our mind to do. I think we're all very powerful, and the whole society really wants us to be able to get there. So, sky's the limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ekta. I think a lot of young entrepreneurs will resonate with your words, because this whole learning the unknown and then also knowing what you don't know and then upscaling yourself is something that we in every aspect of life we rediscover that side of us. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to now request Sukanya Chaterjee again, even not only in his present position as a director of programs with the Indian Humanity Foundation, but even in a previous avatar, I think she spent all her time and effort in skilling the workforce, right? So
for many decades, I'll speak about the vocational field. So for many decades, automobile, AC, these were the very pertinent field where people used to know these are the courses where people used to offer. Then prior to that, it was wireless telegraphy, radio technology, and then came computer hardware, then electronics, telecommunications, software, and accordingly then it came electrical technician courses, and from there again it changed. Of late, recently it is now a few years back, it is more into beauty, wellness, paramedical. Then during COVID, all of a sudden the entire shift changes from offline to online model. So from there you came into know all of a sudden it is machine learning, then Python, data analytics, robotics, AI. So and recently, and the new technology which is coming is drone technology. So there has been a huge changes with the period of time. So if I talk about initially, it was the courses which were there, it was totally male dominated, male domain related courses. And after that, we find that there are courses which has evolved in due course of time, like health caregiving, which I'm told even there are courses in films and television, there are courses in event management, there are courses in animation. So paramedical workforce has, there's a huge demand in paramedical workforce. So this area has also evolved. So in due course of time, women can, there is no competition in these fields for women. It's a women-dominated areas, and if we can counsel students or women, their family members, that this is the shift where their people are not restricted to getting into a doctor or an engineer, and there are far more areas where people usually used to look for a course which is, if it is a female, she should go as a teacher. If it's a female, she should go for a banking sector. But now there is no limit where females can enter, and obviously the most important thing which I'll say is the employability skill gap. So we talk about many things about skilling and everything, but there is a huge skill gap because initially it was supply driven and now it is demand driven. So corporates, tie-ups, internship programs, hands-on training programs, more and more collaborations, these things are very much important because this is where what the demand is, people should know what the demand from the industry, which Sohini was telling, that in the manufacturing sector there is a huge opportunity. But if courses can be designed such a way wherein things can be made in such a way that it is totally what the people are looking forward, then there will be more scope for employment opportunities, be it women, be it men, it is for all. And definitely there will be no dearth of, I would say, employability for the people, and there will be a lot of good things which can come up, and women can definitely work in those areas. So most importantly is we need to have the requirement from the corporates, prepare candidates, upskill them, reskill them, so that they can get into the level where they want to go and fulfill their aspirations and achievements. So that definitely in long way we will see that we will not have to sit and think for women for getting into a position, but we will speak more about how women can also develop into the economy of the entire nation. That is what I mean.
Thank you, Sukanya. We started about 20 minutes late, and thanks to all of you for keeping to the timeline, because we've really done a good catch-up. But I'm going to delay the tea by another few minutes so that we can do a kind of, I'm sure there's plenty of questions coming your way, so yeah, I can see one hand. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mukhopadhyay, and last almost 20 years I've spent in MBA education. I've been training marketing and sales to students and corporates. Now, from what Sohini ma'am, Sukanya, like all of you were saying, I have three perspectives and I don't know how to connect these three, which is my question. On one hand, I had parents who come and ask me that she's a girl, can she take marketing as a specialization because sales is not for girls. I have been into sales for last 20 years. I used to stay in, like now I'm into business, but as long as I was working, I stayed in Kolkata for 10 days hardly. Rest, I was traveling all across the country. Now, this is one perspective, parents saying this. The other perspective, the girls who are doing their MBA, these girls come to us and say that I'm a girl, can I do sales? A parallel perspective from the HRs, they come and say that, ma'am, don't ask us to entertain the girls because our sales heads, channel heads, distribution heads, they come out and say that these girls don't want to go out in the sun. I'll get tanned, I'll have pimples, my skin will be damaged, my beauty will be gone, etc., etc., etc. So the corporate do not want to entertain all these tantrums. And finally, lot of corporates I don't want to name, some in the paint industry, some even in FMCG till date, have a strict HR policy that in channel distribution, girls will not be employed. Yeah. Right. So, of course, it's a mindset change. I've been doing that for last 20 years, beating my head around, these parents and the students that if I can be a seller, why can't you be? Right? We don't have, guys don't have any extra wings or a tail or horns that they can go out and sell. And as women, we are born negotiators. We are the best in terms of selling jobs. So when ma'am was talking about manufacturing, I could so much relate to it. But then how do we connect all this? Mindset change is one hand. Mindset change of the students and the parents and the students not to bother about skin and pimples and all. And what to do with these HR policies. And till date, do you think these HR policies are relevant even? Aren't these HR policies actually creating these distinctions that women can be taken and men can be taken? So that's my observation.
So I'll begin with what you said at the end. I can't really comment for other organizations, but we've taken a choice to do positive discrimination to hire women. So when we go hire in rural Tamil Nadu, the young men come and ask, why aren't you hiring us? But we took that call saying, we are opening up a new sector. So I can't really comment on that. But what I can comment on, why it is that people would be worried about sending their young women to work in sales jobs or work in a factory where they have to work all three shifts, which means, we run 3 shifts, we have women coming in all the shifts. There is a larger sociological factor. There is safety. That's something we cannot deny. We aren't the safest country for women. Secondly, it's also about how communities and societies perceive the roles of women and when it is okay for a woman to be where she is. Right? So there are very deep underlying factors. So for us, a lot of our work is in convincing parents that it's okay, we're going to take care of your daughters when they come to work with us, because there's somebody's daughter, somebody's whole life, right? That young person who comes to work in my factory. So there's a whole lot that we as an organization do. We have hostels which are safe spaces for our young workers. We provide transportation, and the attempt is to work with the ecosystem to keep people safe. So safety is undeniable. But the other part is to really, the piece that I was talking about, saying that we need to go to colleges, we need to go to the parents. So I was listening to an interesting research piece about how it is the fathers, elder brothers, uncles that play a role in helping a woman decide what career she will take. And think about all socioeconomic strata, right? So how men view women's roles in some of these sectors definitely plays out. The other interesting thing is, it is the mothers, at least according to the study, that determine whether women stay on.
Exactly.
So there is work to be done with society. So it's, what you're getting to see in some organizations as policies is really a reflection of society. And is it right? Honestly, it isn't. If any self-respecting organization will tell you that is just not done. Right? That is discrimination. And some companies like ours will say, okay, we're doing positive discrimination because it needs to be done. I've seen organizations that are choosing to hire trans people for certain roles and doing it deliberately because trans people in our country don't really have too many options. So that's a something we decide to do. But the work needs to be done out there.
At the cost of being a little politically incorrect, I'm going to say this because the part of the world that I'm, being spent most of my lifetime, we've not had too many women also because it's not a preferred choice in being security studies and defense industry, and the dropout is immense. And so that's another factor. There are a whole lot of societal, physiological, physical matters in such matters. So you can't at that point of time blame the organization because you spend a lot of money, funds, energy on training that person. And then after 5 years, 6 years, they drop out for a variety of reasons. Good, right, wrong, I'm not here. But that's when you sit back and say, was the HR policy correct or incorrect? But I would actually say, again, both in the defense industry and elsewhere, there has been a positive movement. But I think a balance is required. Also, I think we women often take a few things for granted that is going to come our way. It's not. You have to fight every inch. Just like we feel men have it on a platter, they don't. They also have to do it. And we can't expect the same. We have to agree to the same treatment coming our way and fighting every inch of it. So, and over to Sukanya, I think she can add.
I think, I'll just specifically answer to your this thing, because marketing is something which was, now marketing has a different career prospect, but initially, even if you see about 15-20 years, people never considered marketing as a very good career option. So for male, it was like, "Arey, wo to becho babu, wo to kono byapar na, eta bag niye chole gelo." So it was that concept. So from there, the entire, and even if you talk about the media and everything, jobs, career options was like doctor, engineer, different. Now there are, there are so many entrepreneurs in this room itself. The women are itself there. So mindset change is very much important. So first we need to change that, being portrayed. So then people will more and more come and opt for those kind of job roles, and I'm sure then HR will not have any problem in making any thing.
I just want to add a point here. One part is, of course, the mindsets don't change on their own, right? Mindsets are a product of people's life experiences.
Yes.
So what eventually will happen, and it will take time, we'll all have to
It
stay
has
in the
already
game.
changed.
Yeah, a lot of things are moving slowly but surely. So when we said we're going to have 90% plus of our shop floor would be staffed by women, the managers and supervisors found it very hard to accept it. They couldn't understand that how will a woman work for 30 days or whatever number of days, because in the minds of men there was this whole thing that this is physically arduous work and you have women menstruating for a certain number of days in the month. How are they going to function? So there were all these anxieties. After 2.5 years of running predominantly women's shop floors, nobody says that anymore. So once the experience changes, mindsets will shift. So it is kind of a very complex change process.
And now in retail sector, there are so many female working.
I recall, I've always wanted to be a journalist. And so when I first, after graduation, I reached out to one of the well-known newspapers in Kolkata. And they said, no reporting, you're going to be on the editorial desk job. And I did take up that job. I went back to complete my master's. My life changed subsequently. But now in every media house, there's so much of women who are doing the reporting, right? So things are changing. And of course, it's the women who are pushing the boundaries, and that's how it happens. They push, and I think your family support, because they realize that it's your dream, and they're going to, because of course everybody has anxiety for, and especially in our country, for a woman child is obviously a lot of anxiety in terms of sexuality. So,
I'm adding a different perspective, but you hold a very powerful position. You have the position to make this mindset change kind of happen. And communication plays a very important role. And I'll give 2 examples. In the hotel industry, the lowest job is cleaning the toilet, followed by kitchen stewarding, which is cleaning the pots and pans. I've spent nearly 8 years in the hotel sector, in HR. And this is like when we were trying to change the job to include all the tasks in a hotel room, to include from toilet to beds. I don't know if you've been to hotel rooms, 5-star hotels earlier. This is like 80s, 90s. Then you would get 3 rings in a room. One who would clean the toilet, one who would dust the furniture, and one who would make the bed. Making the bed was the highest order of task. Now, it's not only expensive to have 3 people clean a room, it's also not comfortable for a guest to have 3 rings for a guest cleaning. Now, how do you communicate? Because the person, how in our country, cleaning toilet is not for everybody. How do you communicate this? So we created a powerful communication campaign saying, want to become a general manager of a hotel? Start by cleaning toilets. And we did this for campus recruitment at the IHMs. We started with Ahmedabad, where incidentally it's the highest level of casteism, and so first year there was some anxious hand raised. Oh, you'll have to clean toilets? Yes. If you want to become a general manager of a hotel, you start by cleaning toilets. Next year, even before we said kind of anything, everybody raised their hands and said, we want to clean toilets. The other is and you mentioned ISB. I remember recruitment, campus recruitment at ISB. ISB's first year. This is when I was in Airtel. And Airtel in those days just had the brand name. Everybody knew it's a Lala company inside. But it was growing very fast and chaotic completely. So our campus pitch there was, we have no processes. We are completely chaotic. It's not for everybody. If you want process and systems and whatever, please join McKinsey, please join Bain & Company, please join those. But if you have fire in the belly, if you want a completely chaotic lifestyle, long hours of work, but you're building something exciting, join us. Everybody raised their hand. Nobody wants to feel like I don't want to be part of kind of that. So you hold a very powerful position to do that communication. I feel.
Any other question?
Maybe we can ask other countries to reflect.
Yeah.
From Nepal, Bangladesh,
I would
USA.
like to say something. Might be a little.
So addressing, sorry, I forgot her name.
addressing the question that you asked, when we talk about, for example, if I take Aarti's example, she said, sorry, Aarti, right? Ekta. She said after a particular hour, she doesn't want to take calls. She wants to have a balance, work-life balance, and she wants to make sure her priorities, which might include kids, children, that might be also a mindset which a lot of women showcase at workplaces. So I will not say it's just a one-way street where corporates are not giving women opportunities which will involve more than a 9 to 5. Manufacturing would have a lot of that. You could have an emergency at any point of time. You would be working with a lot of men. You would have to prioritize work over a PTM maybe, I don't know. So a lot of women are not agreeable, and we have the luxury actually to choose that option which men don't. So that also might be a reason why a lot of corporates and companies are not very comfortable in giving high stress or high turnout jobs to women. Just a note.
So I just want to react to that. It's not so black and white.
Maybe not.
There is a PTM, somebody has to go. It's either the father or the mother. Either of the parents. And there may be two mothers or two fathers.
No, I'm saying the mothers might want to go. I'm saying the women also
what I'm
choose
saying
that
is,
sometimes.
in today's context, it isn't only women who are choosing balance. There are a lot of men who choose balance. Wellness is something that we cannot ignore. I think the pandemic taught us that if we were to only do work at the expense of being okay as human beings, that is also not sustainable.
Correct. I'm just saying there is a point of view which I understand of these HRs where they are a little,
So I'm saying that sitting on the other side of the table, I don't agree. I believe we have to see people as human beings.
Of course.
We have to think of what is sustainable, because it's very easy
That's what I'm
to
saying. The
be in a
women have
burnout
the choice
career.
to say no. That's what I'm saying. We have the...
Neelu, would you want to come? Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Sridhar, for the opportunity. I think I still sit down and
Yes.
What about the skilling? They're very remote and very geographically in a very difficult terrain, and so a lot of challenges for women entrepreneurs there. So what FLIM does is we have partnered with one very popular, esteemed university, Kathmandu University. It's a business university for MBA. And now what they've done is in the curriculum, the students need to go and do internship kind of thing, learning in the district area, in a remote area. So what we did was we partnered them with our entrepreneurs in the district. So these ladies, who are into textiles and food products and things like that, they're doing out of passion or even compulsion sometimes, but they did not have any professional commercial skill. So when these students go, they teach them to do their business planning and even do their finance, bookkeeping, and marketing, especially the digital and online. So it's a very win-win case for both the parties, for the entrepreneur to learn the new skill, and for the student to get that extraordinary experience at the site. Just a small experience, in sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Since we are talking about skills, a lot of things was talked about yesterday about finance and building your business plan, and today about marketing, then HR. But I am sure most of the entrepreneurs here would resonate with the thing, because somewhere they might have started it as a home product, because they did not know what are the legalities that would be, they would have to go through. So most of the women, they have a mindset, they depend upon men for getting their GST registrations or a trade license or other certifications and all, whatever is there. So there is not enough skill training in that field as well, because they don't know what they need to get through. Because suppose like I'm in a personal care product line, there is not enough information even on the internet, because what do you need to get through? Because if you are approaching a corporate, if you want to scale your business, how do you go about it? because there are not enough information whether you want to go through a herbal or a certificate like an Ayush certification, or do you want to do a cosmetic and drugs certification. So all those skills are also very important, because we don't need to depend upon men for all these things, you know. So a certain platform needs to be set up regarding that. That is what I feel. And through Wiki also we are trying to connect women so that they can get skill in this field, because this is also a very important aspect. That's what I want to share.
I think you see men very much, right? But one of the things is that we women actually serve. We women actually think that this is a men's club, at the top level, top hierarchy will be better. And we don't, whatever the quality we have, we are very happy to be in certain position, and then we don't want to take that ladder, that responsibility, that thing. So I think that skill also is very important for bringing us that equality sort of thing. That no, you are a man, I am a woman. It doesn't matter. My skill and your skill is same. So if I don't have, I need to acquire it. So that is important. But sometimes sad thing is, even in my company, I have seen that same girl who has joined, same man who has joined, working for last 20 years. Both have the same skill, but the man is much smarter, coming to the HR, doing all these networking, all peer thing, and visibility is there. And that woman or that girl, she's working by herself and not doing that peer and networking. So that sort of skill is also very important other than that.